Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Chris Dost. Welcome back to our Biblical Hebrew channel. Today we're going to be looking at the second half of Amos 1:1. We'll be looking at the Masoretic text, both in the printed edition and in the Aleppo Codex. We'll also be looking at some Masoretic notes, and I'll be answering some of the questions that were posted online about how to go about interpreting Masoretic notes. We'll also look at the critical apparatus of BHQ as well. All right, let's begin. Okay, so Amos 1:1, we got through the first 6 words last time, and we will pick up there. But first, let's read it in Hebrew. So first fast, then slow, then fast again. דברי עמוס אשר היה אבן נוקדים מתקוע אשר חזה על ישראל בימי עוזיה מלך יהודה ובימי ירבעם בן יואש מלך ישראל. All right, now a little slower. דברי עמוס אשר היה ון נוקדים מתקוע אשר חזה על ישראל בימי עוזיה מלך יהודה ובימי ירבעם בן יואש מלך ישראל. And then fast again. דברי עמוס אשר היה ון נוקדים מתקוע אשר חזה על ישראל בימי עוזיה מלך יהודה ובימי ירבעם בן יואש מלך ישראל. Okay, so last time we said that Divrei Amos, and I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit. All right, so Divrei Amos, the first 2 words here, we could translate it as the words and affairs of Amos. Some people would just prefer to have it as the words of Amos. We're not going to argue about that here. You can see the commentaries on that. Okay, divrei, we said, is a masculine plural construct with a conjunctive accent below it. Remember, we said that that is the munach accent, which is a conjunctive accent which joins this word to the following word. The following word is Amos. Amos is the name Amos, so the words of Amos. And Amos has that accent on the top, or that cantillation mark that looks like a schwa above the word. And that is zakef katan. And that is a fairly frequent disjunctive accent. When we have a disjunctive accent, oftentimes that can serve to indicate the end of a phrase or a grammatical construction. In this case, it's a construct phrase. Other times, a disjunctive accent will close out a relative clause. We'll see that the next clause here, Asher haya vanokdim, it closes out with a disjunctive accent, and so that kind of ties those 3 words together. So the words and affairs of Amos, who was, we said Asher is the relative pronoun, Haya is the third masculine singular, suffix conjugation, or G stem or basic stem, whatever you prefer to call it, form 1, meaning he was. And then Van Nokedim, we didn't point out last time, as I recall, the reason why there is no dagesh in the beit. And we're not going to get into the technicalities of it here, but when a word begins with a beged kefet letter, depending on what precedes the beged kefet at the beginning of a word, in this case beit, will not receive the dagesh. I just wanted to point out this rule, 19c in Muraoka's grammar. It says there, at the beginning of a word, a begad kafat, or beged kefet, however you care to call it, is plosive, that's the harder sound, if the word is at the very beginning of an utterance or if the preceding word ends in a consonant. If the preceding word ends in a vowel, it becomes spirant. This is the softer fricative sound, when beit becomes veit, or when pe becomes fe. So it becomes spirant if there is a juncture, but it is plosive if there is a separation, that is to say a disjunctive accent. So notice here they give the example of Genesis 1:7 where it says vayhi chen, not vayhi kain. Whereas in Judges, it's vayihi ka'asher because of the zakef gadol disjunctive accent there. But seeing as how the hey is functioning not as a consonant but as a vowel marker here, and there is a conjunctive accent underneath, this explains why it is van nokdim, not ban nokdim. And then we said mittekoa is the halfway point, so to speak, because it has the atnach accent, which is the major dividing disjunctive accent. So the words and affairs of Amos, who was among the sheep breeders of Tekoa, and then we continued on by saying Asher Chazah. Again, we have the relative pronoun. Chazah is a third masculine singular suffix conjugation in the basic stem, which means which he saw in visions or something like that. A little tricky to translate precisely, but Chazah means to see in visions. And so Asher Chazah, which he saw in visions. What does this refer back to? Well, presumably it refers back to divrei. The problem is divrei is a plural, whereas chazah is a singular verb. This could very well refer back to, and I think actually does refer back to Amos, and so therefore Asher Chazah needs to be translated who saw visions, who saw visions. That's going to be the best translation here in my opinion. Who saw visions, al Yisrael, against Israel, al Yisrael, against Israel, bimei Uzziah, in the days of Uzziah, bimei Uzziah, in the days of is yimei, with the preposition ba at the beginning. Now this would be, I don't know why that came up there. Normally ba would have the schwa, and in this construct form, yud would have a schwa, but when you have the first two consonants of a word in Hebrew beginning with a schwa, you end up, and the second one is a yud, you end up with it being realized as a hirik yud, which is what we have here, be-may. Okay, so in the days of Uzziah, Melech Yehudah, the king of Judah, Melech Yehudah, Uvimei Yerovam, and in the days of. Now, this warrants some discussion, right? Because bimei is what we have above. Why do we have vimei? Well, the rule is that when you have a word that begins with a bump letter, beit vav mem or pei, so here we have one, and there is a conjunctive and before it, it is realized as u. So we end up with u vimei. Because the conjunctive vav is pronounced u as a vowel before the beged kefet letter at the beginning of the word, the beged kefet letter, in this case beit, will not receive the hardening dagesh, and therefore it is spirantized, and we end up with u vimei, not u bimei. So, and in the days of Jeroboam ben Yoash, the son of Joash, Melech Yisrael. Now, please note that the verse marker here, verse 2, is in the wrong place. This should come after the Sof Pasuk. That's the name of the double dots, we can call it, that ends the verse. That's where the 2 should be. And so this is a mistake in the electronic edition here. So, Ben Yoash, Melech Yisrael, Shnatayim Lifnei Hara'ash. Shnatayim, 2 years. This is the dual of Shana. Shnatayim, the dual of Shana. 2 years. Lifnei, before. Hara'ash. Okay, so 2 years before the earthquake. All right, very good. So we understand the forms there. Couple of things to note here. So going back, let's go back to right after Mittekoa, because that's where we picked up last time. We note here that we have the word asher, the relative pronoun, and the accent on it can easily be confused, especially in the manuscript. I want to go to the manuscript for a minute. If we zoom in here on asher, it looks like above the resh there that there's a cercilis. This is not a cercilis. In that line, there are 2 cercili, one over Vanokdim, the other one over Mittekoa. Those are cercili which draw our attention to the Masoretic notes to the right, the 2 lameds there. This one is not a cercilis at all. If we go to the list of accents in BHQ and go to the conjunctive accents and we scroll down just a touch, we will see here that we have the postpositive. It will not come on the first syllable. Tlisha ktana. This happens to look like a circillus. Let me zoom in for you here. Pardon me. Okay. Okay, so we've got the Tlisha ktana. And so, yes, in the manuscript, it can look like a circillus, but it is not. This is the conjunctive accent. Okay, so...